Catus, Maximus here. Just a little review of this General MM1E. This is just a basic moisture meter or water equivalent. Tells you how wet stuff is. It'd be handy in a variety of situations, like if you're drying firewood to really see if it's dry enough. You can see if it's below 20%. These are also used by building inspectors and homeowners. If you think you got a slow leak or something coming through a roof, you actually just take this and take its two little prongs. The cap fits pretty tight, but actually I can appreciate that. You can press this in the various into your walls and all sorts of stuff. If you have mold problems, and then this will be easy for you to. You already see the mold, but allows you to see how wet the walls are. So anyway, it's just a pretty basic unit. The biggest defect is they got the switch on the back. I have no idea why it's doing that. Also a 9-volt battery instead of using some AAAs or something like that. Anyway, the cap does include a calibration, so if you put it on the high, and it's just a resistor, but I kind of like the idea of it, just because you can turn it on. Oh, and when you do turn it on, this filling up is actually displaying the power, the battery level, so new battery. Then we actually have a calibration unit here, so it's going exactly at 21, so that's perfect. You can actually just see, just a light touch, the human body is quite a bit of water. If I go just a little bit harder, and I have really dry hands right now, there we go. We can get pretty high water content in a person. So it actually responds pretty quickly, and I do like that. There's a lot of more fancy ones that have an LCD display that tell you the humidity and exact percentage super easy instead of having to check the scales, but it's pretty easy for you to know if it's on high or low and see if it's in the middle or the upper or lower portion. You don't need to be super duper accurate. This unit is, but you don't, for you, whether or not it's, you just need to know, like with firewood, whether it's in the middle or up higher, because if it's down in this area in the high range, and I do like that it tells you whether it's high or low range, you'll get to know. Anyway, for doing things like wood, here I happen to have a piece of wood here. We can already see this is way dry, drier than 16%, so we'll just go to the low setting, let it boot up again. And surprisingly enough, even a piece of wood sitting inside a house for more than a year, actually right there we go, still above 10% or around 10% moisture. Let's see if I can get a better. There we go. I'm getting up to 12% here on this top part, and so it's really simple and easy to read. And here's some sheetrock, and you should always get a moisture reading out of sheetrock. That's part of how it works. The gypsum, it's made out of gypsum because the crystals contain water. It takes energy to boil that water, and that's what provides your half-hour fire rating. We can see my walls are about 10%. So anyway, you can see that it is indeed a pretty handy little unit. I do like that they actually do make one part number available, and that's to replace these tips in case they get damaged. And of course, there's accuracy issues because, if you have a piece of wood and you're measuring here, it could be really dry out here and still be very wet in the center, and this won't particularly help with that. Measuring things like concrete moisture, it would only tell you more or less what's on the surface. But I do like the fact that you can snap the cap on the bottom. So anyway, let's open this up and see what's inside. Let's go ahead and pop this thing open. This cap really is pretty well secured if you don't have some fingernails. There we go. Pop that off. Get our little 9-volt battery out of here. So this thing, I like the bar graph style just because it's easy to use, and this general one seems to work reasonably well, and at least it's sold more at a resale store, so if you have some problem with it, you can just return it and get a different one versus ordering something online. Those little probes are 5mm. Not in super tight, so if you have reading problems, make sure that these are in. You don't want these super duper tight. They have super tiny threads, but you want to make sure that they're at least reasonably tight. Would have liked if the contacts were, the metal went out to the edge, so those could be tightened down, because unfortunately when you have this metal post tightening against the surface of the plastic, they won't ever really stay tight if you use them, because of course you have to press in with those little metal spikes. Take out our 4 little screws here, which is annoying because they're using super tiny holes, just big enough for the screws to fit in, But unfortunately, a screwdriver that properly fits the head of the screw won't actually fit down the hole. It's really kind of strange. I really dislike it when manufacturers do this. At least they're not using tamper-resistant screws. Always annoying. Not going to be a lot to see in here. It's just going to be a simple like circuit board, but figured we'd pop it open and take a look-see here. There we go. Oh, I forgot to mention these side panels are, you know, they're kind of like a squishy vinyl or something like that. They're kind of funky. At least they're held in reasonably well. No reason the switch couldn't have been mounted on the front. Don't know why they did that. Actually, surprisingly, you actually have, you know, some kind of chip, a processor. We know it's a processor because there's a little quartz crystal there, and there's a capacitor and the switch. It's the only things on the back side of the board besides what apparently is a couple of wires, soldered to some nuts. Spot welded to a couple of little nuts, so that's how they're getting it to hold in. Surprisingly enough, they're using hex nuts, which put more stress on the plastic than square nuts. Our array of LEDs. This is going to be the little chip that kind of like drives the bar graph there. So obviously this board is made for more than one unit because we have some other things here, and once again they could have mounted the switch on the front, so really is a cheap unit. I think this thing's like 20 or 25 bucks at some retailers, and it's really a $5 item. It's probably one of the biggest disappointments. I mean, it's okay, it works okay, but and is reasonably responsive and accurate, so, you know, I appreciate that. You just could offer a little bit better value, but anyway, these things certainly can be handy in a variety of situations, and I always had like some old analog one which didn't work super well, so more modern units like this actually make them a useful tool, particularly for woodworkers who want to make, especially sure something's dry, and it can even be used in automotive. You can poke around the carpet and vehicles and see if there's, especially in the trunk area, and use the water level, the meter, to determine, you know, what area of the trunk the water's really concentrating in or coming in from. So it's kind of surprising when you have one of these, you do come up with more ideas to use it. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.